The day I found her bruises and learned the truth, I knew the path back from betrayal wouldn't be through forgiveness. It would be through consequences. My name is Michael Merced, and I'm 35 years old. I inspect homes for structural failures by trade, examining the cracks others miss. When Eunice, my wife and Max's mother, stumbled through our door marked with another man's violence, her whispered, "Michael, I need your help," hung between us like poison. Victor, her lover, had left his signature on her skin, yet she expected me to be her shield. My laugh was involuntary, cold and clarifying. I had always been the steady one, the one who checked the foundation while others admired the view. But that night, I chose justice over martyrdom. No one walks away from breaking what I've built without facing what they've done. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I was sitting at the kitchen table when I heard her key in the lock. It was past midnight, and the house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I'd been waiting up, staring at my phone, 12 missed calls to Eunice, all straight to voicemail. Max had been asleep for hours. The door swung open and she stumbled in. My first thought was that she was drunk. But then the hall light caught her face. "Jesus, Eunice." I stood up so fast my chair nearly toppled. "What happened to you?" Her blouse was torn at the collar. Mascara tracked down her cheeks like black tears. But it was the bruises that made my stomach clench. Dark marks wrapping her left forearm and something purple blooming just below her jaw. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's nothing. I fell." "You fell." My voice was flat. "And what? The ground grabbed your arm in the process?" She tried to move past me toward the bathroom, but I stepped in her path. Her perfume mixed with something else, a cologne I didn't recognize. My chest tightened. "Michael, please. I'm tired." She pushed hair from her face with shaking fingers. "I just want to clean up." "No, you're going to tell me what happened." I pointed to the kitchen chair. "Right now." She hesitated, then sank into the seat. I noticed she winced when her back touched the chair. "You've been gone so much lately," she said, her voice taking on an accusatory edge. "All these home inspections, working weekends." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't try to make this about me. Those bruises aren't from my work schedule." The kitchen clock ticked between us. I remembered when we'd bought it, a housewarming gift to ourselves. Simpler times, 7 years ago, before Max, when we thought we'd built something unbreakable. "Who did this to you, Eunice?" Her eyes filled with tears. "It was an accident." "Bullshit." The word came out sharp. "Someone put their hands on you. I want a name." She stared at her own fingers, twisting her wedding ring. "You're never home anymore." I was lonely. That's when I knew. The pieces clicked together. The late nights, the sudden girls' trips, the way she'd pull away when I touched her. I'd been blind, but I wasn't stupid. "Say it," I demanded. "Say who you were with." When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Victor. His name is Victor." A pause. "We had a fight. He got rough." Victor. The name meant nothing and everything all at once. I didn't know him, but I knew exactly who he was. I laughed, a sound so dry and humorless, it startled even me. The betrayal burned through my chest like acid. "So, you've been cheating on me, and now you come home with his bruises and want me to what? Hold you? Comfort you?" She reached for my hand. "Michael, please. I made a mistake." I pulled away like her touch was fire. "No, a mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. This?" I gestured to her bruised body, to the space between us now filled with lies. "This was a choice. Every time you met him, every lie you told me, every night you let him touch you, those were all choices." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I need you right now," she whispered. "Please don't do this." "Do what?" "Refuse to be your safety net when your affair goes bad?" I stepped back. "Go to him for bandages, Eunice. You chose him. Now live with it." "You're being cruel," she said, her voice hardening. "No." I met her glare. "I'm being honest. For the first time tonight, someone in this house is being honest." I walked upstairs to Max's room, where our 7-year-old son slept peacefully, unaware his world was crumbling. I pulled out his overnight bag and packed pajamas, a change of clothes, his favorite stuffed dinosaur. Eunice followed me. "What are you doing? Where are you taking him?" "Mrs. Duffy's," I said. referring to our elderly neighbor who adored Max. "I don't want him here for whatever comes next. You can't take my son. Watch me." I zipped the bag. "I'm not leaving him in a house with someone I don't trust anymore." I gently woke Max, told him we were having a sleepover at Mrs. Duffy's. He was too sleepy to question it. After dropping Max off, I made 2 calls from my truck, one to Marlene, Eunice's mother, telling her exactly what had happened, and another to the police, filing a report about the incident. Not pressing charges, just documenting, because something in Eunice's eyes told me this wasn't over. I sat in my truck, staring at our house. Through the living room window, I could see Eunice standing there, watching me, tears streaming down her face. "You won't make me your scapegoat," I whispered to the glass between us. "Not for this." But I already knew Eunice wouldn't take responsibility. She'd come back swinging with lies that would make her the victim and me the monster. 2 days later, I was making a sandwich in Paul's kitchen when the doorbell rang. A balding man in a gray uniform stood on the porch, an envelope in his hand. "Michael Merced?" he asked, eyes flicking down to a clipboard. "That's me." "You've been served." He thrust the envelope at me and hurried back to his car. My stomach dropped as I tore it open. The legal language swam before my eyes, but certain phrases stood out in bold relief. Temporary protective order, allegations of domestic violence, Eunice Merced claims, prohibited from contact. The sandwich lay forgotten on the counter as I read it again. Eunice had gone to court claiming I was the one who had hurt her. Those bruises, Victor's bruises, were now supposedly mine. My hands shook with a fury so deep I could taste metal. I'd expected her to lash out, but this? Using the system meant to protect actual victims to cover her affair? I dropped the papers and gripped the edge of the counter, breathing hard. The old Michael might have exploded, might have called her and raged. But that wouldn't help Max. That wouldn't fix this. Instead, I picked up my phone and made a call to Maya Patel, an attorney Paul had recommended. Her office scheduled me for that afternoon. "You need to remain calm," Maya told me 2 hours later, reviewing the order in her downtown office. She was direct, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Courts take these orders seriously, as they should. But false allegations are serious too." "I have proof," I said. "Our home has security cameras. I have footage of the night she came home injured." Maya's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's excellent. We'll need to secure that immediately." She made a note. "What else?" "I took Max to our neighbors that night. She can testify. And I called Eunice's mother to tell her what happened." Maya nodded. "Good. Contemporaneous witnesses matter. But understand, this is going to get worse before it gets better. She's claiming you as the abuser, which means she's trying to control the narrative around Max." My heart squeezed at my son's name. "Where is he now?" "According to this," Maya tapped the papers, "temporarily with his maternal grandmother Marlene until the hearing. At least he was with someone who loved him, not with Victor. The thought of that man anywhere near my son made my blood boil. "Focus, Michael," Maya said, reading my expression. "We have 10 days until the hearing. I need you gathering evidence, not plotting revenge." That evening I met Paul at a diner near his place. We'd been friends since high school, the kind of friendship that didn't need constant maintenance. He'd offered his guest room without hesitation when I called. "So, she's really going through with it," Paul said, shaking his head as I explained the situation. "Making you out to be the bad guy. She needs a story that explains those bruises," I said, stirring my coffee, "and she needs to keep her affair hidden." I remembered the day Max was born, Eunice's tired smile, how she'd squeezed my hand and whispered, "We made something perfect." Now she was weaponizing our son to protect her lie. "You can stay with me as long as you need," Paul said. "We'll figure this out." That night, I installed backup software on my laptop, making sure the footage from our home security system was safely stored in multiple places. Then I watched the video from that night. There it was, Eunice stumbling through the front door at 11:37 p.m., clearly injured. Our argument in the kitchen, too distant to hear but the body language clear. Then me going upstairs, coming down with Max, and leaving the house at 12:04 a.m. The timestamp was crystal clear. I felt a small thrill of victory, hard evidence, irrefutable. But I knew it wasn't enough. If Eunice was willing to lie about who hurt her, what else would she claim? And Victor, what role was he playing in all this? The next morning, a formal notice arrived by email, a hearing date, 10 days away, when I'd have to defend myself against Eunice's accusations. Maya called shortly after. "I'm preparing our response," she said. But Michael, I need to warn you. If Victor is involved in this, he will try to bury you with lies. Men like that don't back down easily." I closed my laptop, a cold certainty settling over me. My fight to protect Max and clear my name had only just begun. I spent the next morning gathering everything I could think of: call logs, text messages, security footage, anything that would help build our case. By noon, I was back in Maya's office, watching her methodically sort through my evidence. "This is good," she said, replaying the nest footage for the third time. "The timestamps align perfectly with your statement. You can clearly see Eunice arriving injured at 11:37 and you leaving with Max at 12:04. I leaned forward, tapping my phone screen. "And here are the call logs. I called Marlene at 12:17, then 911 at 12:23 to make a report." Maya nodded, making notes in her legal pad. "Smart move. Creating contemporaneous records strengthens your position significantly." "I wanted to protect Max," I said simply. "And myself." "Speaking of protection," Maya said, sliding a folder toward me, "I've drafted our response to the temporary order. We're requesting an expedited hearing based on the video evidence and requesting immediate restoration of your parental rights." The words parental rights hit me like a fist. I'd never imagined needing to fight for the right to see my own son. "Do you think they'll actually look at the evidence?" I asked. "They have to," Maya replied, her voice confident. "Judges take false allegations seriously. Your evidence directly contradicts her claims." I remembered how Eunice had stood at the window that night, tears streaming down her face. Had she been planning this even then? Maya must have read my expression. "Focus on the facts, Michael. Emotions won't help us in court." Later that afternoon, Paul called while I was organizing files at his kitchen table. "I've been digging into Victor," he said without preamble. "Did you know he lives at the Parkview condos on Westlake?" "No," I admitted. "I don't know much about him at all." "Well, I just drove by. They have security cameras in the lobby and parking garage. If Eunice was with him that night..." I straightened up. "We might have footage of them together." "Exactly," Paul said. "And maybe even footage showing how she got those bruises." I immediately called Maya, who agreed it could be crucial evidence. "I'll file a subpoena," she said. "But it might help if you reach out to the property manager first. These places sometimes have retention policies. We don't want that footage deleted before we can get it." An hour later, I'd tracked down the property manager and made a formal request for the footage, citing the pending court case. The manager was sympathetic but non-committal. The subpoena would likely be necessary. 2 days passed with no word from Eunice or about Max. Then Marlene called. "Michael," her voice was strained, "Eunice wants to talk to you. At our house. Ron and I will be here." My pulse quickened. "Is this about dropping the order?" "I don't know," Marlene admitted. "She just said it's important." I consulted with Maya, who advised caution but didn't object. "Having witnesses present is good. Just don't agree to anything without consulting me first." The next afternoon, I knocked on Ron and Marlene's door. Ron answered, his face expressionless. He simply nodded and stepped aside. Eunice sat in the living room, looking smaller than I remembered. When she saw me, she attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Michael," she said softly, "thank you for coming." I remained standing. "What do you want, Eunice?" She glanced at her parents, then back to me. "I think we can fix this. This has all gotten out of hand." "Fix this?" I repeated, my voice steady despite the anger churning inside me. "You accused me of assault. You've kept me from seeing Max. What exactly are we fixing?" "We can work something out," she insisted, leaning forward. I could tell the court I was confused, that I overreacted. I studied her face, suddenly understanding. "The evidence is coming out, isn't it? You know I have the nest footage." Her expression flickered. "Michael, please. We have a son together." "Yes, we do. A son you're using as a shield for your affair." "That's not fair," she protested. "Neither is lying about who hurt you." Eunice's face hardened. "If you keep pushing, I'll tell them how dangerous you are, how you have a temper." "You already did that," I said coldly. "It's in your statement, right next to the lie about how I gave you those bruises." Ron shifted in his chair, his jaw locked tight. I couldn't tell whose side he was on, but his silence spoke volumes. "You're making a mistake," Eunice said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Victor won't let this go." I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. Maya's name flashed on the screen. "I need to take this," I said, stepping into the hallway. "We got it," Maya said without preamble. "The condo footage. It shows Victor dragging Eunice by the wrist through the lobby at 10:53 p.m. on the night in question. She's clearly distressed, and he's physically controlling her. It matches the timing perfectly with when she arrived home injured. I stared at the phone, relief washing over me. The truth was finally visible, but something in Maya's tone made me hesitate. "What else?" I asked. "The footage is compelling," Maya said carefully, "but be prepared. When cornered, people like Victor and Eunice don't give up. They escalate." I sat rigid in the courtroom, my palms sweating as the bailiff called our case. Maya squeezed my arm briefly before we approached the bench. Across the aisle, Eunice kept her eyes down, while her attorney, a thin man with an expensive tie, shuffled papers with practiced nonchalance. "Your Honor," Maya began, "we have evidence directly contradicting Ms. Merced's claims." The judge, a gray-haired woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, nodded. "Proceed." Maya handed over a tablet. "First, Your Honor, Nest camera footage from the Merced residence. The timestamp shows Mr. Merced leaving with their son Max at 10:15 p.m., approximately 40 minutes before Ms. Merced returned home with her injuries. Yep, the judge reviewed the footage, her expression unchanged. Eunice shifted in her seat. Second, Maya continued, security footage from Oakview condominiums showing Ms. Merced being forcibly dragged by her wrist by Victor Ramirez at 10:53 p.m. that same evening. The courtroom felt suddenly airless as the lobby video played. There was Victor, gripping Eunice's arm as she stumbled alongside him. Her blouse was already torn. Additionally, Maya said, we have medical records from East Side Urgent Care, where Mr. Ramirez sought treatment for bruised knuckles the following morning. And finally, testimony from Mrs. Duffy, their neighbor, confirming that Mr. Merced brought Max to her home that night and explicitly stated it was because of a domestic situation involving Ms. Merced and another party. Mrs. Duffy had risen from her seat in the gallery. The judge acknowledged her with a nod. "Mrs. Duffy, do you affirm this is true?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said firmly. "Michael brought Max to me around 10:30 that night. He was upset but controlled. He said Eunice had come home injured from being with another man, and he wanted Max somewhere safe while he sorted things out." The judge removed her glasses. "Ms. Merced, this evidence directly contradicts your statement." Eunice's attorney tried to interject, but the judge silenced him with a raised hand. "The temporary order of protection is dissolved, effective immediately. Mr. Merced will return to the family residence with temporary primary custody of the minor child. Ms. Merced, you will have supervised visitation until we can schedule a full hearing." Her gavel came down with finality. Next case. The rest happened in a blur. Maya hugging me, Eunice's burning glare, the paperwork. 2 hours later, I stood in my own living room, the silence nearly overwhelming. I ran my fingers along the back of the couch, half convinced I was dreaming. The house smelled stale, abandoned. Max's backpack still hung on its hook by the door. I touched it gently, remembering the morning we'd left, how ordinary everything had seemed. My phone buzzed. Paul. "You did it, man!" His voice boomed through the speaker. "Maya just told me. How does it feel?" "Surreal," I admitted. "I'm home, but it doesn't quite feel like home yet." "It will," Paul assured me. "Once Max is back, it'll be right again." Something nagged at me, though, a persistent unease. It feels too easy. Eunice didn't even fight back in court. "Because the evidence crushed her lies," Paul said. "Take the win, Michael." Maybe he was right. I needed to focus on rebuilding, not looking over my shoulder. Later that afternoon, I picked up Max from Marlene's. His face lit up when he saw me, and he ran into my arms. That feeling, his small body against mine, his absolute trust, almost broke me. "Are we going home?" he asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "Yes, buddy. We're going home." That evening felt like stepping back in time. I made spaghetti, Max's favorite, while he sat at the kitchen table working on multiplication tables. The normalcy was so profound it ached. "Dad, is Mom coming home too?" Max asked as I checked his math. I swallowed hard. "Not right now, bud. Mom and I need some time to figure things out." He nodded solemnly, accepting the vague answer with the resilience only children possess. After dinner, bath time, and a chapter of Harry Potter, I tucked Max into bed. He fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the emotional upheaval none of us had been able to shield him from completely. I stood in his doorway, watching his chest rise and fall, when I noticed a sliver of light from the garage. The door was slightly ajar, just an inch or so. Had I left it that way? I couldn't remember. I pulled it closed, checked the lock twice, and did a final sweep of the house. Everything looked normal, safe, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The next morning I woke to the sound of car doors slamming. Blue lights flashed across my bedroom wall. I jumped up, heart pounding, and looked out the window. 2 police cruisers were parked in my driveway. I threw on clothes and hurried downstairs, careful not to wake Max. When I opened the front door, an officer I didn't recognize stepped forward. "Mr. Merced, we need to speak with you. A neighbor reported someone suspicious around your garage late last night. When we checked it out, we found something concerning." My stomach dropped. "What did you find?" "A bag containing prescription pills without labels, a burner phone with some questionable text messages, and what appears to be a small amount of cash." "Mind explaining that?" I stared at him, ice forming in my veins. "Those aren't mine. Someone planted them. I don't care what you're claiming, Mr. Merced. These items were found on your property." The officer's face remained impassive, unmoved by my protests. "They were planted," I insisted, my voice rising. "I just won custody of my son yesterday. This is a setup." The second officer, thumbing through a notepad, looked up. A concerned neighbor reported seeing someone suspicious around 11:30 p.m. We found a bag containing unidentified pills, a burner phone with texts about picking up more product, and about $300 in cash. My mind raced. Victor. It had to be. This was too perfectly timed. "I want to call my attorney," I said, steadying my voice. "And Detective Luis Alvarez from your department. He's familiar with my case." While the officers conferred, I texted Maya and Paul. Within 30 minutes, my kitchen filled with concerned faces. Maya arrived first, then Paul, and finally Alvarez, looking tired but alert. "I'll take it from here," Alvarez told the patrol officers, leading them outside for a private conversation. Maya touched my arm. "Michael, we have another problem. CPS has been notified." The words hit like a physical blow. "What does that mean for Max?" "They're sending someone this morning. Until this is cleared up." She hesitated. "They're likely to temporarily suspend overnight stays." I sank into a kitchen chair. "They can't take him. He just got home." Paul's hand landed on my shoulder, solid and reassuring. "We'll fight this." "Right now." Detective Alvarez returned, his expression grim but determined. "I know this looks coordinated, Michael. The timing is suspicious. We'll test for prints, check the neighbor's statement." A knock at the door interrupted him. A woman from Child Protective Services stood on my porch, clipboard in hand. Behind her, I saw Marlene's car pulling up. The next hour passed in a bureaucratic nightmare. The CPS worker, Ms. Reynolds, explained the temporary safety plan, while I sat stone-faced. Max, confused and frightened, clutched his backpack. "Do I have to leave, Dad?" His voice cracked, eyes welling with tears. I knelt down, keeping my voice steady despite the rage and pain burning through me. "Just for a little while, buddy. Grandma's going to take care of you while I fix things here. I promise it won't be long." "But we just came home," he whispered. "I know." I pulled him close, breathing in the scent of his shampoo. "I know." I watched them drive away, Max's face pressed against the back window. His question echoed in my head. "Do I have to leave, Dad?" I turned to the 3 people still standing in my living room, Paul, Maya, and Alvarez. "I need everything you've got," I said. "Every resource, every favor, every legal angle. They are not getting away with this." That night, Paul and I sat hunched over his laptop in his apartment, reviewing the footage from my driveway camera. We'd been at it for hours, frame by frame. "There," Paul said suddenly, pointing at a flash in the corner of the screen. "Something reflective." I leaned closer. "Can you enhance it?" Paul zogled the image, zooming in on what appeared to be a reflection in my neighbor's chrome bumper. "It's distorted, but it's a license plate," I breathed, excitement building. "Right at 11:28 p.m., exactly when the suspicious person was reported." Paul worked his tech magic, sharpening the image. "I can make out part of it. Starts with LTR." I grabbed my phone. "Victor drives a black F-150. Let me check the plate number I wrote down from the condo footage." My hands shook as I scrolled through my notes. "LTR 471. That's it, Paul." "That's Victor's truck." The next morning, I brought the enhanced images to Detective Alvarez, who studied them with narrowed eyes. "It's compelling but not conclusive," he said carefully. "Let me cross-reference this with traffic cameras in the area. If his truck was in the neighborhood at that exact time..." Meanwhile, Maya filed an emergency motion challenging the evidence. We're arguing planted evidence and tampering, she explained. The judge who just ruled in your favor will see this for what it is, a desperate attempt to undermine his decision. Every interaction with Eunice became an exercise in restraint. During a supervised handoff of Max's forgotten homework, she feigned innocence. I don't know anything about what they found, she said, eyes wide with practiced concern. I'm just worried about Max. But I noticed Victor waiting in his truck across the street, watching with that smug half-smile. Always in the background, always just visible enough to remind me he was pulling strings. 3 days of agonizing waiting later, my phone rang. Alvarez's number. "Michael?" he said, his voice tense with controlled excitement. "We've got a match. Traffic cam at the corner of Maple and 5th shows Victor's truck 2 blocks from your house at 11:22 p.m. Another cam picks him up leaving the area at 11:36. It's Victor's truck." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. "You're sure?" "Positive. The plate is clear as day. We've got him." The next morning I sat at Paul's kitchen table with Maya and Detective Alvarez, steaming mugs of coffee between us, mapping out our next move. "We need to confront them where they can't run from the evidence," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. "Somewhere public enough for witnesses, but private enough to avoid a scene." Maya nodded, tapping her pen against her legal pad. "The courthouse would be too formal, and too easy for them to storm out." "What about Ron and Marlene's house?" Paul suggested. "Neutral ground, sort of. Family territory." I considered it. Eunice wouldn't expect an ambush there, and having her parents present might keep things contained. Detective Alvarez set down his mug. "I like it. We show all the evidence at once. No chance for them to coordinate stories or excuses. And if Victor reacts badly, which he will," Paul interjected, "then I'll be there to handle it," Alvarez finished. I called Marlene that afternoon, careful to keep my tone neutral. "I'd like to talk about Max's schedule," I explained, "and some evidence that's come up in the case. Would you and Ron be willing to host?" Marlene agreed, though I detected wariness in her voice. She'd been caught between her daughter and the truth for weeks now, and I could tell the strain was wearing on her. "Should I invite Eunice?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "Tell her it's about Max's custody arrangement, and if Victor comes with her, that's fine too." Maya helped me organize the evidence chronologically. "Start with what they already know exists, then move to what they don't expect," she advised. "The psychological impact will be stronger." Paul had been unusually quiet. When Maya left to prepare the court filings, he pulled out his phone. "There's something else you should hear," he said, pressing play on a voice recording. Victor's distinct voice filled the room. "Yeah, I planted the bag behind the workbench. He'll never see it coming." I stared at Paul. "When did you?" 3 nights ago. I found him at Miller's bar. Got him talking. He loves to brag after a few beers." Paul's expression was grim but satisfied. "I figured we might need something irrefutable." "Paul," I breathed, This could be the nail in the coffin." "That's the idea." Saturday afternoon arrived with knots in my stomach. I drove to Ron and Marlene's suburban house with a folder of evidence, and Paul beside me. Maya and Detective Alvarez would arrive separately, Alvarez staying out of sight initially. Marlene answered the door, her face tight with anxiety. "Everyone's in the living room," she whispered. I stepped inside, the familiar scent of Marlene's potpourri filling my nostrils. I remembered family dinners here, Max playing with his toys on this very carpet, before everything fell apart. Eunice sat stiffly on the couch, Victor beside her with his arms stretched behind her in a territorial display. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Paul. "What's he doing here?" she demanded. "Support," I answered simply, setting up my laptop on the coffee table. Ron sat in his recliner, silent and watchful. I'd always respected his quiet dignity, even now. "Let's get to the point," I began, opening my laptop. "There's been a lot of accusations thrown around, but evidence doesn't lie." I started with what the court had already seen. The Nest footage showing me leaving with Max the night Eunice came home bruised, the timestamps clear. "Old news," Victor muttered, but I ignored him. Next came the condo lobby video showing Victor dragging Eunice by the wrist. Eunice flinched visibly when it played, her hand unconsciously touching her arm where the bruises had been. "That doesn't prove anything," she protested weakly. "I could have been upset about something else," I continued. "The urgent care records show Victor seeking treatment for bruised knuckles the next morning." Victor leaned forward. "I work construction. Hands get banged up." "Now for something new," I said, playing the enhanced driveway footage showing the reflection of Victor's license plate. This is from the night the evidence mysteriously appeared in my garage. Eunice paled. Victor's jaw tightened. Traffic cameras confirm your truck in my neighborhood at 11:22 p.m., Victor, the exact time of the alleged break-in. Victor stood up abruptly. This is bullshit. You can't prove anything. That's when Paul pulled out his phone. Actually, he said calmly, we can. He pressed play. Victor's voice filled the room. Bag goes behind the bench. He'll never see it. By the time the cops are done, he'll lose the kid for good. The room exploded. Marlene gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Ron slammed his chair back, standing up with his face flushed red. Eunice stared at Victor in horror, either at what he'd done or at being caught. I couldn't tell. Victor lunged toward Paul. You sneaky son of a... I stepped between them. It's over, Victor. He turned his rage on me, eyes wild. You think you won? You think this is the end? Actually, came a calm voice from the hallway. It is? Detective Alvarez stepped into the room, badge out. Victor, you're under arrest for filing a false police report and tampering with evidence. Detective Alvarez moved with practiced efficiency, the metallic click of handcuffs filling the sudden silence of the living room. Victor's face contorted with rage, his muscles tensing against the restraints. You have the right to remain silent, Alvarez began, his voice calm and professional. I watched without emotion as Victor was secured, his threats now impotent whispers. This wasn't satisfaction I felt, just the cold relief of truth finally having its moment. Ron stood rigid by his recliner, shaking his head slowly. The disgust on his face was unmistakable, not directed at me or the arrest, but at the man who'd brought violence into his family's orbit. Our eyes met briefly across the room, and something passed between us, an understanding that transcended words. This is ridiculous, Victor snarled, straining against the cuffs. She'll tell you! Eunice, tell them! But Eunice wasn't holding the line anymore. The careful facade had crumbled completely. She slid from the couch to her knees, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Michael, she sobbed, reaching toward me. Please don't do this. Not like this. Not in front of my parents. Her words hung in the air between us, the same words from that night. Please, help me. But now without the bruises to hide behind. Just the raw desperation of someone watching consequences arrive. You're worried about humiliation now? I asked quietly. After false accusations? After trying to take Max from me with lies? She flinched at the flatness in my voice. This is the bed you made with him, Eunice, not mine. Detective Alvarez guided Victor toward the door. Victor threw one last venomous glance over his shoulder. This isn't over, he growled. Alvarez tightened his grip. Actually, sir, it is. The front door closed behind them. The police car's lights flashed silently through the curtains, painting the walls in alternating red and blue. Marlene stood frozen by the kitchen doorway, one hand covering her mouth. Ron hadn't moved from his position, his expression carved from stone. The room felt like a tableau, a family portrait fractured beyond repair. Without another word, I packed up my laptop and nodded to Paul. We left them to process what had happened. Some messes couldn't be cleaned up, only lived with. 3 weeks later, Maya called with updates that arrived like dominoes falling in perfect sequence. The prosecutor has charged Victor with assault based on the urgent care records and condo footage, she reported. The tampering charges stuck too. His previous employer was shown the evidence. He's been terminated. I sat at my kitchen table, absently tracing the wood grain with my finger. And the custody hearing? Scheduled for next Monday. With the evidence we have, I'm confident about the outcome. She was right. The judge reviewed everything. The fabricated evidence, the false accusations, the recording of Victor's confession, the police reports. Victor's arrest photo stared out from the court file, his rage captured in high definition. The court's ruling was unequivocal. I received permanent primary custody of Max. Eunice was granted supervised visitation only. The house remained mine. The judge ordered Eunice to pay substantial restitution for legal fees and damages. The court finds the pattern of false accusations and manufactured evidence particularly troubling, the judge stated, looking directly at Eunice. This behavior undermines the very systems designed to protect actual victims. Throughout the proceedings, Eunice kept her eyes down, occasionally dabbing at tears. The confident woman who'd once threatened to destroy me was nowhere to be seen. In her place sat someone diminished, her schemes having collapsed around her. As we exited the courtroom, Maya shook my hand. Congratulations, Michael. You fought clean and won. I nodded, feeling hollow victory where I'd expected triumph. Thank you for everything. Maya headed toward the elevator with our files. I turned to follow when a voice stopped me. Michael. Eunice stood in the corridor, alone. Her tailored blazer couldn't hide how much weight she'd lost. Mascara tracks stained her cheeks, her hands trembling slightly as she reached toward me. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. We can start over. This doesn't have to be the end. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. I saw the woman I'd once loved, the mother of my son, and the architect of so much pain. For a moment, I remembered Sunday mornings with pancakes, family movie nights, the life we'd built that now lay in ruins. I said nothing, no anger, no pity, no forgiveness. Just silence as I walked past her, toward the elevators and the future that waited beyond. The courtroom might have been silent after I passed Eunice in that hallway, but inside my head, a storm was finally settling. I drove home with the windows down, letting the wind clear my thoughts. When I walked through my front door, my door, by court order, the house felt different. Not happy yet, but clean somehow. Like after you've pulled all the furniture away from the walls and scrubbed the places no one usually sees. Max was with Marlene for the afternoon. I'd pick him up after dinner, and tomorrow would be our first official day of our new normal. I walked through each room, touching door frames and countertops, reclaiming the space. When I reached Max's bedroom, I straightened his Captain America comforter and set his favorite stuffed dog exactly where he liked it. We're going to be okay, buddy, I whispered to the empty room. The next morning, I woke before dawn. Old habits from inspection work. I mixed pancake batter from scratch, the way my mom taught me years ago. The familiar motion of whisking calmed me. By the time Max stumbled into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from his eyes, the first stack was golden brown and waiting. Pancakes? His face lit up. Is it a special day? I ruffled his hair. It's Saturday. That's special enough. We fell into rhythm over the following weeks. School drop-offs at 7:45, work until 3:30, pickup, snack at the kitchen table while Max told me about his day. Homework spread across the dining room table, with me checking math problems between email responses. Dinner by 6, bath, story, bed by 8. Simple, predictable, safe. Paul stopped by one rainy Tuesday evening after Max was asleep. He brought beer and sat at my kitchen counter while I finished loading the dishwasher. Your lawyer called me, he said, popping the cap off his bottle. Wanted to make sure you knew about Eunice. I paused, hands dripping soap suds. What about her? She lost her job at Bright Smile Dental. Apparently they have a morals clause in their contracts. Court records are public. He took a long sip. She's been evicted from that apartment too, moving in with her parents temporarily. I dried my hands slowly on a dish towel, trying to process how I felt about this news. Not happy, not sad, just nothing. Victor's sentencing was yesterday, Paul continued when I didn't respond. 8 months county time. Judge revoked his work release after he missed a check-in. Complete license suspension for a year after that. I didn't know. Yeah, well, Maya figured you wouldn't want to be there. Paul set his beer down. Michael, I've known you since we were stealing candy bars from Wilson's grocery. I've never seen you this contained. I leaned against the counter. What am I supposed to feel? Triumph? Relief? It's just done. Your whole world exploded, man. And now it's put back together. Different but stable. I gestured around the kitchen. Max has pancakes on weekends again. He's sleeping through the night. His teacher says he's participating in class again. That's all that matters. Paul studied me. And Eunice? She made her choices. So did Victor. I shrugged. The court made its ruling. $7,000 in restitution for legal fees. Another $5,000 for the damage from their staged break-in. She pays or she faces contempt charges. That's it? That clinical? I thought about Eunice in that courthouse hallway, mascara streaking her cheeks, begging for another chance. I thought about the bruises she'd brought home from Victor, the lies she'd told to police, to courts, to her own parents, the way she'd tried to take my son. It has to be clinical, Paul. Anything else would leave room for her to manipulate her way back in. Paul nodded slowly. Fair enough. After he left, I checked my email one last time before bed. There it was, a notification from the family court coordinator. The subject line read, Supervised Visitation Schedule, Merced E. and Merced M. Minor. I opened it and scanned the details. Every other Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Holiday provisions, rules for the supervisor, requirements for Eunice's mandatory counseling reports, 4 hours, twice a month. That's what remained of the family we once were. I closed my laptop and stood by the window, watching rain slide down the glass. The reflection showed just me, standing alone in a quiet house where my son slept safely. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was finality. 2 months after the final court ruling, I stood in my kitchen watching Max color at the table. His tongue poked out between his teeth as he concentrated on keeping inside the lines, just like he did when he was 4. Some things never change, even when everything else does. I hung his latest masterpiece on the refrigerator door, joining a mosaic of school assignments and weekend art projects. The fridge had become a timeline of our healing, each drawing a little brighter, a little more confident than the last. "Dad, can we have pancakes tomorrow?" Max asked, not looking up from his coloring. "It's not Saturday yet, buddy." He shrugged. "Sometimes we can have pancakes on not Saturday." I smiled. "Good point. Pancakes it is." That night, after tucking Max in, I wandered through our quiet house. The living room no longer held the tension of Eunice's lies. The garage had been cleansed of Victor's planted evidence. The dining room table hosted homework sessions instead of legal documents. Our home smelled like pancake batter and laundry detergent, and the pine-scented cleaner Mrs. Duffy recommended. It smelled like peace. Last week, I drove past Eunice's new place, a small apartment in a tired complex on the east side of town. She works part-time at a dental billing service now, the only job she could find after word spread about her court case. The restitution payments eat most of her paycheck. Her parents help with rent, but I know from Marlene that the assistance comes with conditions and disappointment. Eunice appears every other Saturday at 9:55 a.m., 5 minutes before her supervised visits with Max. She brings small gifts and forced enthusiasm. The supervisor, a retired social worker named Janet, sits quietly in the corner of the community center room, making notes. Max is polite but guarded. 4 hours later, Eunice leaves, and Max and I go for ice cream or to the park, rebuilding our Saturday routines around the interruption. Victor's face appeared in the local paper's court report section when he violated probation by missing community service hours. The man who once swaggered into my in-laws' living room now wears an ankle monitor. He works odd jobs when contractors will hire him, which isn't often. His assault conviction shows up on background checks. His driver's license suspension means he bumps rides or takes the bus. I heard from Paul that Victor's ex-wife used his conviction to restrict his visitation with his own kids. Do I celebrate their ruin? No, I never wanted destruction. I wanted justice. Justice isn't revenge. It's balance restored. It's consequences aligned with actions. It's the natural ending of a story that began with betrayal and continued with lies. When Eunice left the courthouse that final day, sobbing that I'd destroyed her life, I simply said, "No, Eunice. I just refused to let you destroy mine." That's the choice I made when she stumbled through our door with Victor's bruises blooming under her skin, begging for my help. I could have been her bandage, her shield, her excuse. Instead, I became her consequence. Every night now, I check the locks before bed. I peek in on Max, watching his chest rise and fall in the soft glow of his nightlight. I touch the doorframe of his room and whisper the same words. "You're safe here." Because that's what matters most. Not punishment, not vindication, but protection. Protection of what's real and worth saving. If you've ever been begged by someone who betrayed you, you know the echo of their voice, how it pulls at old loyalties and promises. You know how tempting it is to slip into familiar patterns of rescue and forgiveness without accountability. But betrayal only wins if you let it. If you accept less than truth. If you trade justice for comfort. If you're standing where I once stood, looking at the wreckage of trust and wondering if you'll ever breathe easily again, know this: you can rebuild. Not the same structure that fell, but something stronger. Something that can withstand storms because it's built on truth instead of illusion. That's not a happy ending. It's something better. It's an earned ending. And in the quiet of my reclaimed home, with Max's drawings on the fridge and pancakes planned for tomorrow, I've found mine. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.